Life is precious, and we all have the opportunity of living it to the fullest. Unfortunately, so few of us know how to manage it all. How do we account for our opportunities? How do we account for our time? How do we account for our relationships, health, spirituality, homes, finances, influence, and careers? How do we account for the one life we have to live? I am so glad you asked. In this program, you will find answers to all of these questions and more. Welcome to the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Account for Life podcast. And today we're going to actually continue on our topic that we had yesterday, What's in My Future? And the subtitle today is Financing of Truth. What's in my truth? What's in my future and financing of truth? Man, what an awesome and incredible day. Good morning, Sonia. How are you? What an awesome, incredible day, man. So maybe a couple of months ago, I was reading in Matthew chapter 27 and 27 towards the end. It's where Jesus had already been crucified. And there's a passage in there that many of us kind of like glazed over. It was brought to my attention by Dr. Miles Monroe. And so I've been just kind of studying this for the past, several months, just in placing it in my life and in my business, because what's in your future? We get to decide how the future will go when we partner with God. So I'm looking at this scripture and I'm looking at it. And at the very end of chapter 27 of Matthew, the chief priests go to Pilate. And they say, Pilate, the disciples are going to come and try and take the body of Jesus and say that he resurrected. And we don't want that to happen. And so Pilate's like, okay, look, fine. Go take a guard. Go take a watch and secure the tomb as best you can. Now, here's the thing. If I were reading that, just reading the words, I would not have known what the heck it was saying. See, go take a guard or go take a watch is that's in both I think guard. Take a guard is in the NIV, and take watch is in the King James Version. It means take soldiers, 60 to 600 soldiers. Come on now. 60 to 600 soldiers to guard one man. So, hey, man. So here it is, 60 to 600. Hey, maybe 100. I don't know how many, but it was at least 60. They go, they secure the tomb. And then chapter 28, that's when the angel comes, bust open the tomb, and then Jesus comes out and he's like white as snow. And it talks about the soldiers standing there as dead men. They were so afraid. I'm getting to it in just a second. I'm going to talk about my future, and then you can think about your future. And they're standing there as dead men. And then Mary comes, and that's the story that we've lived with, that Mary was the first to get there. No, I'm sorry, Mary was not first. The Roman soldiers were the first on the scene. They saw it. Mary did not see the resurrection. The soldiers saw the resurrection. I'm getting to this financial truth in a second. And so they see it, but they're afraid because they lost their man. And when you lose your man in that day and age, you were supposed to kill yourself. So they was not going back to Pilate. They was not going back to headquarters. And so they all going back into the city, just bewildered, trying to figure out what just happened. And then a group of them said, you know what? Let's go see the chief priests and see what they say. And that's when they go to chief priests. They tell them the story. The chief priests then say, hey, did you go tell Pilate yet? No. Okay, good. Don't tell Pilate anything. And this is where they gave them large sums of money to keep their mouths shut. Do not say anything. Here's the money. We'll take care of Pilate. We'll make sure that you are okay. All right. They gave him a lot of money to shut up. Now, here's the thing. To this day, there's been no Roman soldiers. There's been no Roman accounts that says, you know what? I was there. I saw it. They had so much money. This is where it's important. And I'm going to tell you about my future in a second. They had so much money that they could silence the truth. They had so much money that they silenced it. I looked at the scripture and I've been looking at it for the past several months. And it says, large sums of money is in our future, is in my future. Why? Because we have to finance the truth. We can no longer allow the truth to be muzzled. We need money to finance the truth. And if we don't have any money, guys, I'm just saying, the chief priests had money, and that wasn't all their money. They didn't give all their money away, but they gave enough to keep this thing silent for over 2,000 years. Over 2,000 years, money kept the truth silent. What's in my future? As I was looking at my future and seeing the plan that God had laid out already, and when God brought me back to that text this morning, he says, look, son, I'm ready to finance the truth and the message that you're going into the market with. One of my colleagues, Shonavelle, she posted on her page, Tax Planning Saves Lives. And we were talking. I says, well, the word over my life back in March at the 100X conference was this, that they saw me as like an ambulance saving people's lives. And I says, that's in essence what we're doing. We'll be saving people's lives. But here's the lives we're saving. We're saving accountants right now. We're saving accountants' lives because accountants are at the forefront of accountability. Accountants are at the forefront of helping people to manage money. Accountants are at the forefront to changing the landscape. Several years ago, I said, man, if accountants would change, everything is going to change. But I didn't know how. I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't sure if I had what it took. But that's why God gives us time. See, God gives us time because he knows that in his time, in his plans, when we follow his plan, he will take us right where we have the abilities. What is ability? Ability is power. That's all ability is. So power is the ability to do something. And when God gives us the ability to do something, he automatically gives us the power. But a lot of times he can't give us the power first. He has to give us purpose. He has to give us the purpose first. He has to allow us to see the purpose for our lives, the purpose for our businesses, the purpose for our ministries, the purpose for our family members, the purpose for what it is that he's got planned for us. Because if we don't understand the purpose, then if God would have helped me to finance something 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we wouldn't be here today because I would have just been having a good old time. I don't know. I just wouldn't have. I don't think I would have done right. But today, see, the future is calling. The future is calling for all of us. The future is calling us to see that, you know what? I know I'm having these situations, but my situation, the situations that I'm having, this situation is because there's other people having that situation. And other people having that situation means that I have something that can help other people, even though it feels painful right now. Even though, I'm like, man, like, Lord, I mean, we've been back and forth on this money thing. He says, I know, son, but you want to finance the truth. I'm going to give it to you. Now, here's the thing. Back in 2019, I'm going to close in just a second. In 2019, I did something. I was speaking at my church. And this is back, at one point I was, I don't know, somewhat like speaking in church or whatever. So we were at church and it was my week and I gave a sermon. And in the sermon, I spoke about something. I spoke about praying that God would allow me to manage his hundreds of millions. I said this in the sermon, and I remember a friend of mine, because what happened was that day, I had a PowerPoint, I had a whole slide deck ready, and something happened, and it wasn't working. So I had to actually go off the top of my head, which is interesting, and I did it. And so I didn't remember everything that I'd said, but a friend of mine tweeted, and I need to go back and find his tweet. He tweeted what I said that day about managing the resources of God. So, what's the moral of today? What's in my future is financing the truth. What's in yours? Tell me something. What's in your future? See, because I'm telling you what's going to happen in mine. And I'm boldly saying that God has anointed each of us for something. And the more and more I read the scriptures, the more and more I know that the scripture is just a way for us to know, oh, wow, I can put myself in the scripture. I can put myself in the scripture with Abraham, right? Abram was called, and he was called to a land that he didn't know. And, and his family was probably like, what in the world? And I was just sharing a story about how I remember when my wife, Jenny, she left her job. And her family was not, they was like, what are you doing? What's wrong? They was mad. They was mad at us. They was definitely mad at me. It was like, they thought I was steering her down a path of ruin. And seriously, like when her dad did not want to speak to me. And full circle, right? Full circle, it's coming on 7 years. Now it's like, oh, well, your kids are turning out great. And oh, things seem to be going, something's good happening in this house. But there was a time when we were called that people did not like what we were doing. What are we doing? What are we doing that others are saying, what, you're crazy? You shouldn't be doing that, because that's the future that we have to go after. The future where no one else is going. See, because the scripture in Matthew chapter 7, it says, wide is the gate that leads to destruction, and many people travel this path. Narrow is the way that leads to life, and few people are on that road. What road are we traveling on? What's in my future? Financing the truth. What's in your future? That's for you to decide. Guys, I appreciate you for joining me for this episode of the Account for Life podcast. I'm Jay Moore, the Healthy Accountant, helping you to account for your life. God bless, and I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
Thanks for joining us, listening friends. We are so glad you invested this time with us. Always remember, you only have one life to live, so live it to the fullest. This has been the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the Healthy Accountant himself, Jay Moore. Until next time, make it a great day.